Good afternoon, everybody. Men's Mental Health Workshop. It's usually done by one of my colleagues. Today, as part of this, I'm just going to cover some basics about looking after your emotional health. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. This is a small town. There's a lot of people here that I've come across before. But just to introduce myself, my name's Nazma. I work for Total, Wellbeing, Luton, and I work for the talking therapy side. I'm not a clinician, I'm on the operational management team, and I'm not going to go into detail about what I do. What I want to talk about is spend a few minutes talking to you about prevention and signs and symptoms about men looking after their emotional health. So just quickly, for those of you who don't know us, Total Wellbeing Luton, where there's two elements to our service. Some of you might already know, you might have come to our stand. So we provide a physical health programme and an emotional health programme, and it's for people. I'm from emotional health, so emotional health is for people who are suffering from low to moderate levels of anxiety, stress and worry. And we provide free talking therapies for those who might want to think about ways of handling their stresses. It is all assessment based, but I'm not going to go into detail, but I think it's important to tell you how we work so that you can recommend family, friends and yourselves to us, and especially men, as we're talking about men's emotional health. Right, so some facts. In England, around 1 in 6 men have a common mental health problem. Men are more reluctant to seek support for their mental health or disclose mental health problems to loved ones. 8 men a week complete suicide in the UK on average. We're not here to talk about suicide, we just want to mention it to bring it out in the open so we're more aware. Now, I have 3 brothers. They're all into sports, they all have very, very masculine jobs. They're boxing trainers, they're fitness trainers, they work for organisations that see men in a particular way. Our family has been through a lot. I lost my mum only back in March. One of my brothers just couldn't handle it. It's just, he hasn't even cried and he doesn't understand why he hasn't cried. And then on top of that, there's other things that happen in our lives. And I'm going to focus on men, because men, we all feel pressure, but men think they're weak if they don't talk about their emotions. I'm the only female. When I grew up, it was just me and my mum. So I came across my brothers fighting, showing anger. You know, I grew up on a council estate in West London, and there's a lot of drugs, alcohol, gangs, all sorts of things. And men feel that they have to act a certain way and they don't talk about how they're feeling. I was fortunate that sometimes my brothers would talk to me and I could sometimes direct them. Because of all sorts of things, I remember going to one of my brother's schools, and because he had behavioural issues, he got sent from a normal comprehensive school to a school for young people with behaviour, and guess what? They couldn't cope with him. What he does now is he's a boxing trainer, and it's his life, and that's his way of releasing stress. So my point being, on the other hand, when men don't speak about what they're going through, as family members, as friends, as wives, we still have to deal with some pressures that they put on you without knowing. We can also face pressure, and it's hard for us to deal with things. So people like Total Wellbeing Luton, if you live in Luton, can help, or something else like going for a coffee with a family member or a friend, telling them. So 2 points there. It's good to talk. If you're a male and you've got so many different pressures in your life, find a way of releasing that. And also think about the effect of what you do that affects your family and friends as well. I'm just talking about that from the point of view of growing up with 5 males, very, very masculine males, and we've had a lot of issues within our family in terms of where we grew up, financial problems, all sorts of things. Now, here's an example of some very masculine men, especially The Rock. If you look at him, he's big and burly, but he's known to have had mental health problems. Now, when I say mental health problems, we'll refer to mental health problems, but I always say emotional health because I see it as a preventative thing. You've got to look after your emotional health so you're more resilient. I'm not talking about diagnosed mental health at this stage. You look at, all these men have played characters or come across as very, very strong characters. You know, men do put on that face of being a strong character. With my dad and my brothers, I saw it. I see it every single day. But that doesn't mean to say they're not going through any problems. So what we want to do is equip our men, and they need to equip themselves to be more resilient in life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? Any questions before I move on? No? Okay, so that's just an example of some strong men. Right, so I'm not going to talk in too much detail about cognitive behaviour therapy. It's basically how your thoughts and feelings and your behaviours are affected. At Total Wellbeing Luton, when somebody goes into therapy, that's the main kind of therapy that we offer. So why are we talking about it in Men's Mental Health Awareness Month? Men need to tune in to their thoughts, their behaviours, yeah, and their feelings. It's all a vicious cycle. So if I go back, my brother's probably, his ears are probably burning, all my brothers, we've been talking about them now. But if I think, when my brother, one of them said he hasn't cried when we lost our mum, and I can see he's not working anymore, he's not doing this, that and the other. But one good thing about him, he's realised he has probably got PTSD because of the role he was in before in his work, and he's open to therapy. That's the stage we want men and other people to start thinking, is recognising when they feel low, and there's nothing wrong with feeling low. Just because you're a man doesn't mean to say you don't have emotion. You have emotion. It's how you present that emotion. Some men get angry. You know, some men, I don't know, they might just go and play football. There's so many different ways, but it's what you do and whether you do it in a positive way. I'm not going to go into this one, but going back to prevention, as I said, it's all about recognising how you're feeling, why you're feeling the emotions and what you're doing about it. Are you not acknowledging what you're going through and then it's going to hit you one day? Or are you showing anger? Are you taking it out on the closest people around you? I've seen it growing up in a male household. I've seen it, all that testosterone. Testosterone?
Testosterone.
Is that how you say it? Yeah. Yeah. So it's been the only thing. But the advantage I had in my family, I'm the older sibling, and my brothers had a lot of respect. And I think that also helped because sometimes they were able to come to me and I was able to support them. So my point being on this slide, guys, when you go through things, and ladies, everyone, think about your thoughts, how you're feeling physically, how you're behaving, and the mood that you're in, right? Some things can trigger you. I know when my mum passed, I took a week off, come back to work, and I'm going to say everyone pissed me off. Everyone at work really annoyed me. But I recognised why. I made the choice to come back a week later. And I wanted to get back into routine, and I know a couple of my brothers wanted to do the same thing as well. But I knew what my triggers were, so I knew I had to keep going. But that was my coping mechanism. A colleague of mine who's a therapist did say, Nazma, you and your family might need, therapy, but it's up to you. But at least I know it's available, and I want you guys to know that there's nothing wrong with therapy, whether it's with us or with somebody else. It's all about recognising your own emotions. So CBT, there's some techniques. I'm not a therapist, like I said, I work with therapists, but I'm an operational manager. I do other things, as well as awareness about therapy through workshops and the webinars that are on our website is something that I arrange. Now, Talking Therapies was set up about 20 years ago by the government to get people to start looking after their emotional health. It's in every county in England, usually under an NHS trust, but in Luton, it's under Total Wellbeing Luton. And it's about the early signs. When you're not feeling good, what can I do? It's been 2 weeks. I haven't gone out with my friends. I haven't gone to the sports club I go to because I'm feeling rubbish. And sometimes we need a helping hand for someone to guide us, and this is where therapy does work most of the time. It's not for everybody, by the way. My job is to sell therapy, but I will tell you it's not for everybody. That's why what we do is assessment-based. And some people aren't therapy ready. I know people, especially men in our lives, who would say, I don't need a therapist, what are they going to do? I'm weak if I go to a therapist. You're not weak, it's actually very, very courageous. It's a courageous thing to do, to actually face how you're feeling, because facing how you're feeling is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. Your mind is just thinking constantly about problems. And you need somebody to guide you through that. There's different types of ways you can help yourself, and this is some of the techniques that therapists use. They plan activities, they have challenging negative thoughts, they tell you to problem solve, manage your sleep, and they have worry management time. I'm not going to go into detail, although therapists go through people in therapy with some of these things. A lot of it can be Googled. You can help yourself, but sometimes you need a professional to guide you. Activity planning, that's one way. Now I'm going to talk about this one. A gentleman, I'm not sure if any of you have been into any of our workshops, but one of my therapists said to me, and it's always hit home, because obviously growing up with boys, I am very protective over boys because of my brothers being the older sibling. Funny enough, I've only got daughters. It's funny how life turns out, isn't it? But the therapist didn't tell me any names or anything because it's all confidential. Told me of an example one day about a single dad. He was strong enough to phone us and ask for an assessment. And after assessment, we were able to take him on. I think he had one-to-one, not group therapy, because we do all sorts. And he was asked to fill this diary in. And he actually said to the therapist, I don't know why I've got such low mood. I feel really, really rubbish, but I've got such a good life. Although I'm a single dad, I look after my kids, I'll work, I'll cook them dinner, I look after the house, I pick them up from school, but I feel crap. So what the therapist did is ask them to fill in a diary, and they discovered that he did. In therapy, they go into more details about it. There's tasks that you have to do as a human being. You have to find time to eat. You've got to do this, that, and the other. And what they discovered And he didn't know this until he did this activity diary, that everything he did was for his kids. He's a single dad. He didn't do anything for himself. So they come up with a plan to start implementing things that he enjoys within that time, and it's not things that take up an hour to get somewhere, something very expensive. It could be like 10 minutes reading a book, finding out what you enjoy. If you think, oh, I'm going to go and do a marathon because it's really good for me, and you don't enjoy running, it's not going to work. And it's also about taking small steps as well. So that's another example of an activity diary. I'm not going to go into detail about that one because Dee's only given me 20 minutes as well. Yeah, because she knows I can talk for England. That's another diary. Now, there's two types of worries. I'm going to mention it to you. There's hypothetical worries and there's current worries. And the reason I'm mentioning it to you is because it fits in with preventative work in being resilient and looking after your mental health. So, hypothetical worries could be like, I got ill, my boss has called me into the office, now I'm going to lose my job because I haven't been into work for a couple of weeks. But you don't know that's going to happen. Current worries is things that are currently happening and they're practical, that things we have control over, like you've missed your bus, you're going to be late for work, or you can get a taxi. Don't worry about it too much. I won't go into any further details, but the reason we mention it, because there are people out there, we have a general anxiety disorder group, people's stresses and anxiety and worries really affect their lives, and there's a lot more people out there than we realise, and that could be men as well, because they are seen as the man of the house. They've got the responsibilities of looking out for their missus perhaps, and their kids and everything. So they might have a lot of hypothetical worries. There's some worry management techniques people can do, and I'm going to quickly talk about a worry time because I know that works for me. I haven't had CBT, but I've been fortunate enough to pick up bits from my colleagues that I think has helped. My brain moves 100 miles per hour and I'm constantly thinking, and I'm imagining there's a lot of people out there, including men, who do this. So worry time is finding a time of day where you focus on worrying and you get on with your life. Let's talk about a hot day, right? A hot day, you're absolutely really worried. And you go on a hot day, this person is absolutely gorgeous, but because you're so stressed, you're not concentrating on them. Now that's not nice, is it? That's not going to work out. So you want to find a worry time where it's a time not close to bedtime or during the time when you're busy, when you can write down your worries, think about it, throw away the paper. That's just very basics, guys. I'm not talking about in detail about how you do worry time. I'm just trying to say there's a time and place for worry, okay, and not on a hot day. Right, that's more stuff about worry time. Refocusing, that is really important, and about focusing on your lives, on what is important to you. I'd say, let's go back to refocusing. When you physically exercise, okay, it brings you get that hit. You feel really good, and you're focusing on what you're feeling, which is the energy, the happy hormones after you've exercised. And after you've done something like that, you're feeling more positive and you might be able to handle things a lot better. So the other thing I want to quickly mention before I finish and Dee tells me off is think about looking after yourselves, guys. You've got a lot of responsibility, and just because you're a man doesn't mean to say you don't have emotion and you can't feel. Tune into your feelings. Be very aware and conscious of how you're feeling, what you're feeling, what is the trigger, have you not been enjoying life over the last couple of weeks? If so, what can you do about it? Could it be therapy? Could it be going back to a football club or kick around with the lads or going to the pub and you haven't done it for a while? Think about looking after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, yeah, you can't help the people in your lives. And I've grown up with so many men, and it does affect the other person. It does not only your relationship within yourself, and it affects who you're with, your family. You know, it affects everything. It could affect your job, relationships, children, parents, all sorts. And as men, it's not weak to think about your emotions. It's actually a very, very strong and courageous thing to do. And I just want to leave it at that. Okay? Any questions?
Nazma, I've got a question. When you were talking earlier, before diagnosis and just looking after him, at which point do you realise that actually you might need to get help, or you might need to consider slowing down, etc.?
There's a criteria, and I would say go to your GP. In depression, for example, I think they say after you felt like this for 2 to 3 weeks, when you've been really, really down, that's what it turns into depression. I would say always go to your GP. Although after therapy we say to our clients, you need to be your own therapist to look after yourself, you do need extra support. So go to your GP and they will be able to help you. And also that's why we have assessments. Because it could be, when people have assessments with us, at the assessment, the therapist will talk about lots of different things, and then they might say to you, hold on a minute, you need more specialist support than what we can give you, so we're going to signpost you or refer you elsewhere. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No? Well, that's one of my services, by the way, guys. It's on the access to free webinars that we do as well. And Dee, did I stay on time? Is she going to be proud of me?
No, she's
gone. So I think I did stay within the time.
So I'm not going to go too much on sort of mental health, but I'll give a little bit about the story, how to overcome a few things in life, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm Karel, born and bred in Luton, 35 years old. I've got one son. So I went to school in Luton, like many people, like many kids my age. Got kicked out of school when I was 25. Not 25, 15. Sorry, when I was 15. My GCSE results, they weren't great. I failed most of them, but again, you can't let a hard time bother you. So we overcome that. Went to college, studied sports management. I think it was one of those things where, as black kids in school, a lot of us don't really go down the educational route. It was football or drama, or we're trying to be rappers, or do you know what I mean? So I went down the sports route, finished college, didn't use the diploma that I had, didn't use it for anything. My first job was in a call centre, NOP. I don't know if anyone from Luton remembers NOP, but basically you're just on the phone, just ringing people, just doing surveys. I lasted there 3 months, got sacked. And then I had a friend, an old school friend, who got me into a car dealership. So I started as a car dealership I was in Vauxhall. I don't know how many of you have lived in Luton for long, but if you know where the old PC world is and the new BMW specialist cars, I moved in there. I started off in the valeting team, and then I progressed through the ranks as a sales executive. So I was selling Vauxhalls to a lot of people in Luton. From there, I progressed into Audi, so the prestige world. selling nicer, more expensive cars. And then from there, I went into Land Rover for a few years. And that's where things sort of changed for me. But as I got to Land Rover, unfortunately I lost my mum. So that set me back a little bit. But I didn't let that humble me or derail me from what I wanted to do. I took some time off work, about a year off work, wasn't really doing much, moping about. And then I went back into Land Rover, and it's from there when something just clicked for me, and I really wanted to make something and do something for myself. So selling a lot of cars, and I met my business partner. I don't know if many of you know him, his name's Marcus Gittins, he's from Luton as well. It was from there that we saw that a lot of customers were buying cars, but funding the cars through brokers. So that's what me and Marcus sat down one day and we thought, hold on, we could do this. And that just started my business, Broker Finance. So I now own a brokerage. We've got 3 members of staff. Going to be 4 from Monday. So essentially what we do is fund vehicles from £5,000 all the way up to £1 million. So if you need the car, it's something that we can do. We search the market, negotiate with the dealer for you, get you the best deal on the car. If your credit's bad, we can put you in touch with lenders to essentially get you a car on finance. That's pretty much my story. I just wanted to say a few things on how I stay positive and how, you know, we get to sleep at night, because going from being employed where you're going to get a paycheck every month, to owning a business, making sure that that business makes that money so you can pay the bills, pay yourself, pay your staff, support your family. That's quite a hard thing to manage from month to month. So going back to what the last lady said, I think taking care of your physical health really, really helps. So if you can get into like a routine of waking up, going to the gym, you get those endorphins, and you feel good, you're motivated, you crack on with the day. But then also if you've got family, just thinking about your family, thinking that you've got to provide. But going back to like what the last lady said, it's not bad and it's not hard to, you shouldn't feel the type of way if you have to talk about things. So there's been instances where I'll be on the phone to my business partner, being quite negative, oh, we're off target, we're not hitting these numbers, we need to hit these numbers. It's quite hard to take that. But when you actually can talk about it and get someone's opinion on it, I think that pushes you forward to strive to do more and get the result done. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm not going to rabbit on too much. My journey is not finished. We've got a lot of plans. What I would say to parents in the room and people in the room, if you don't know what you want to do in life, don't worry about that. You can overcome anything, you can do anything. Times have changed. I grew up, it was your parents banging on, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, you got to go to university. Nowadays as a kid, you can pick up a camera, play video games and be a millionaire. So there's so much stuff that you can do. You can go on an app. I don't know who goes on TikTok or you've heard of TikTok. You can set up a shop on there and make hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. So I think nowadays it's one of those things, you don't have to look at it as you have to have those traditional routes to make money. You don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a solicitor, you don't have to, as long as you're doing good and whatever you pick that you do, you enjoy it, you'll be successful. And I think a lot of people have the pressures of family telling them, why did you fail this, or you haven't been to school, or you need to do this. You can't let your parents or family members tell you what you want to do with your life. You got to make that choice and stick to it. But the only thing I would say before I wrap it up is, whatever you do, make sure that it's something that you enjoy doing as opposed to a chore to do. So if it's a case of, I'm just going to get this paycheck at the end of the month, I'd say that that's probably not the right choice. You've got to love what you do. It shouldn't be waking up as I can't go to work. But I'd also tell everyone as well, just have an open mind to things, because there's so many ways to make money. There's not just apply for a job. You can set up a business very easily nowadays. It costs about £40 a year, and you can make money in so many ways in today's day and age. But yeah, that's it. Any questions?
How long have you been broken?
So we set it up 4 years ago, but we've been trading just over 2 years now. So yeah, and that was that's just something. If anyone needs a car, give me a shout. We can help with that. Also, if anyone needs a job, we don't. How me and my business partner interview and recruit. We don't look at CVs, and our interviews are not like your normal interviews, because I just see a CV as a lie and an interview as a lie. We'd rather just have a chat, see if you're a good person, see if we think you're capable of doing the job, and we'll hire you. It doesn't matter if you've got A's in GCSEs or you work this job, you work that job. Anyone can learn. We're happy to give everyone a try. So, any more questions?
Would you give an ex-offender a job?
Of course. Yeah. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone deserves a second chance in life. As long as that person has the right work ethic, why not? That's what I mean. We don't judge. We come around. A lot of my friends have criminal records, but then everyone could change, right? So we wouldn't dismiss that. We certainly have that conversation.
I've got a question. Do you think at the time before you left school, when you were not paying attention to your GCSEs,
Yeah.
do you think that you would have been open to the type of counsel that you're giving today? I'll kind of flip my question around, because I was going to ask you, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah.
But I believe you've answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
So would you have been open to listening to what you're saying today at that age between, GCSEs, I think 16, 17?
Yeah. I think it was a case of, as I touched on earlier, I think we're all drummed into like education.
100%, yeah.
But I know a lot of people with degrees, and I'm further afield in life and they're however much in debt. And that's just something that I want everyone to sort of lead with, is like, you've not failed if you didn't pass high school, you've not failed if you didn't go to college, you've not failed if you didn't go to university, but you set up your own future, right? So what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, and I was having a conversation with Dee, I just feel like, especially like black parents, because when they were in the country, it was a lot different. They were a lot more luckier to have their education and, not wasteful. And whereas people my age, I know a lot of people that wasted their education, to be honest with you. But what I'm trying to say is you can turn that corner.
Yeah.
There's a lot more opportunity out here for us. There's a lot of training courses if you want to train. Some people aren't meant to be business owners, but in the same way, if that's not what you're meant to do, you need to find what it is that you can do to progress and excel.
It sounds like you've done a good self-teaching as well.
Yeah.
At college and school, they don't go that way.
For me, I think in school and college, they need to teach you about things like credit.
Yeah.
They need to teach you about things like saving money, finances. They need to teach you about things like APR rates. They need to teach you about things like mortgages. And because, a lot of us aren't in a position where we're just going to get given a 50 grand check to go buy a house. We have to start from scratch. But what you find with a lot of people, and especially in my line of work, they're messed up with credit 18. It stays with you for 6 years. You can't do anything for that amount of time. They also push out a lot of credit options. So, borrow this £5,000. You're not thinking about how you're paying that back, and it messes you up for years. You have to take these things into consideration, and really. So, to be honest with you, I educated a lot from music, listen to a lot of motivational rappers. Reading, I never used to read in school, but you got to find a book that you like. So I like books like 50 Cent's book, for instance. People that you you have to have role models, right? I think you've always got to have someone that you can look up to and possibly like to sort
He
of.
said, 50 said, I watched an interview with him, and he said, people don't understand, it's a word, one word, show business, but it's not one word, it's two words.
It is,
show and business.
Exactly.
So that's not what he
Exactly.
said.
I think as well, it's one of those things that what I learned from being younger, we're not all looked at in the same way.
Yeah.
So you, if you're not a face of something, like I learned this from my dealership days. I used to be the top salesperson, my business partner used to be the top salesperson, but our face didn't fit for management because you take us out of the sales floor, they're not making money anymore. So you have to really work on yourself to realise, okay, cool, I've just made these 20 grand this month. How can I make that for myself? Take the risk and make it for myself. And yeah, that's what you just got around with. Any more?
Well, it's not a question as such, it's just, I don't know, let's say it's a statement. Jordan's mine, son. And all what you said about sort of like of our era and how we were, and what was fed into us was like education. If you wanted to do anything bar, if it was sports, it was frowned upon. We didn't want you going down those routes. It was a case of you need to be getting whatever qualifications because you need to get a job to work for someone to. It was never a case of you need to be or you can be a business owner.
Yeah.
That wasn't what we were feeding into them.
Yeah.
And you know, the school system hasn't changed over I don't know how many years. And it's a case of unless we wake up, and unless thank you so much for coming today,
No problem.
because not only the little bit that I thought you were going to share, you shared so much more, and that's for us, not just for the young guys, as in your age, but also for us elders now,
Yes.
for us to listen to what you're saying, because there are things that, whether it's our grandkids, our nephews, or what have you, in that, or you know, whoever it might be, there's information there that, well, actually, maybe I need to change my mindset. It's not always you guys need to change, and you guys are in the wrong. Understand that we're still coming from maybe old times, and need to understand you and listen to you
And I
guys more.
think as well is like, we can't view education as like college and school. Like you could buy an online course from someone teaching you how to sell products on Amazon and make a yearly salary in a month. I think that needs to be the bigger picture of things. As long as you're doing something, it's better than